Hey everybody, and welcome back to Conspiracy Theories and Chill. On this episode, we're going to cover a conspiracy that has many twists and turns along the way, because it spans time, space, and history. So come along with us as we head down the rabbit hole and explore Project Pegasus. Project Pegasus was the classified defense-related research and development program conducted by DARPA, in which the U.S. defense technical community achieved time travel on behalf of the U.S. government, also known as the Real Philadelphia Experiment. Project Pegasus was launched by the U.S. to perform remote sensing in time so that reliable information about past, present, and future events could be provided to the U.S. president, intelligence community, and military. Now, while researching this topic, I was reminded, and for very good reason actually, of MKUltra and Project Montauk. They're related, but especially in the way that once again children were the preferred subjects used. But it was also expected in this project by the founders that the children that were selected to be used in this program would continue to be involved in time travel when they grew up and then go on to serve as America's first generation of chrononauts. But the children found, however, that in the process of serving as these child time travelers attached to Project Pegasus, they also became America's first time-space pioneers and were treated as such. Over 100 children were used in experimental jumps through time and space to places like Mars, along with time travel tests. They typically sent children because of design limitations that made it difficult for adults to jump. Any adults that actually managed the jumps, despite the limitations, suffered psychological trauma as well. So children seem to be psychologically adapt better to these jumps. However, the jumps were not always safe, as one child returned from his temporal voyage before his legs did. Alfred Weber reports that he was writhing in pain with just stumps where his legs had been. So these aren't all happy stories from Project Pegasus, and not all of the subjects even survived the experiments. But an interesting survivor who we have got to get into for just a bit is Washington-based attorney Andrew Basiago. A former child jumper himself, Basiago claims that future presidents like both Bush's, Clinton, and Barack Obama were all also children who were involved in these experiments. And Basiago also claims that he was sent to several famous events in history, like the Gettysburg Address, and even that he and some of the other children had met George Washington. So these are a lot of pretty outlandish claims, right? But this is from a respected attorney, and he's been telling a consistent story for years. But backing up just a little bit, here's some of the history surrounding and also backing up Project Pegasus. Now, we have got to start this section out by talking about Nikola Tesla, because all of this ties back into his work. Now, Nikola Tesla was considered by many to be the smartest man to ever live, and is also considered to be responsible for inventing some of the most important inventions in history, including alternating current, light, X-rays, radio, remote control, the electric motor, robotics, lasers, and wireless communications, and limitless free energy. The man was a genius in his time or any time, but he also claimed to have time traveled, having wrote that he could see the past, present, and future all at the same time, and had discovered how to manipulate it. Now, when he died, all of his research, all of Nikola Tesla's research and notes were confiscated by the U.S. government upon his death. And they're pretty open about the fact that they used a lot of that research. But Basiago claims there were several time travel devices at work during these experiments, and the majority of his temporal adventures can be attributed to our old friend Nikola Tesla. And in documents allegedly retrieved from Tesla's New York City apartment after his death, it is revealed the schematic for a teleportation machine using something Basiago calls radiant energy. The machine would form a shimmering curtain between two elliptical booms. So, based on Tesla's research around 1947, teleportation research and development was formed by members from the Manhattan Project and the imported Germans under Operation Paperclip who were enrolled as War Department special employees. And in 1958, the Eisenhower administration, with Richard Nixon as vice president, established both NASA and DARPA. And in the interest of national security, all projects under the newly formed DARPA were marked classified. In contrast to NASA, any achievements made by DARPA would not be known. Neither would it be known by any branches of the United States government. Now, as rocket research designs were being absorbed into NASA, teleportation research designs from the Manhattan and Paperclip teams were absorbed into an umbrella project under the Air Force. By 1961, NASA, in concert with the Air Force, was conducting rocket flight tests for the Apollo program. But after the Kennedy assassination, the Lyndon B. Johnson administration took office and the Air Force launched Project Pegasus. And it conducted teleportation jump tests that led to a successful teleportation event in 1964. And in 1965, NASA experienced major setbacks in the Apollo program. And the Nixon administration took this as a cue, and Operation Pegasus took flight. The Pegasus program resulted in numerous successful human teleportations, which subsequently led to time travel in 1970. The pursuit of time travel became of clear interest, so as to avert the threat of a nuclear holocaust that was posed during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Everything that I just talked about in that claim, because it might have bothered you, some of you, that I over and over again said that they did this. They don't admit to having accomplished this. They admit to having tried for long periods of time, decades, to have used Tesla's research to attempt this kind of thing. And I find it very interesting. I find it very fascinating, and I don't see it being outside the realms of possibilities. And as you know, on this show, that's what we do, is we explore these things and look into them. And the other thing that I found very interesting about this particular one is how out in the open this all is. There is information literally everywhere about Project Pegasus. It's almost like they want you to find it. And the Basiago interviews themselves are countless. He tells his story to anyone that'll listen to it to this day and is very prolific in his speech. Some of his interviews are up to 6 hours long. He has a lot to say. He describes the devices. He describes the processes involved. Here is just a brief description in Basiago's own words of a time travel experience. He says that he passed through this curtain of energy and that he would enter a vortal tunnel that would send him to his destination. Some other teleportation devices that he described included a plasma confinement chamber in New Jersey and a jump room in El Segundo, California. There was also some kind of holographic technology which allowed them to travel both physically and virtually through time and space. But he names names of other children involved, and he talks about going to Mars with Obama as a child. And he did grow up with Obama. So there may be something there. He also has some very interesting Obama stories as well, for that matter, but that's a story for another time. But where else did Andrew Basiago claim to have traveled during these experiments? I would have really liked to have let him tell his story for himself, but YouTube has gotten very good at protecting their content, and I couldn't find a good converter software that could translate any of the interviews that I found of his, which there are many. I encourage you to look them up and listen to them for yourself. But I couldn't find a converter to convert one where I could use it in this video and play it one for you. So where did Andrew Basiago travel during these experiments? Well, several of his voyages led him to the 1800s. And on one occasion, he found himself at Gettysburg on November 19, 1863, the day President Abraham Lincoln gave his famous Gettysburg Address. Now, as Basiago tells this particular story, he had been dressed up as a Union bugle boy. However, he felt that his oversized shoes were drawing too much attention, so he wandered away from the crowd only to be photographed. Basiago also claims to have traveled to the Ford Theater on the evening President Lincoln was assassinated. In fact, he claims that he did so multiple times, even running into himself twice, though he never actually witnessed the assassination. But each trip, he says, was slightly different than the last, leading Basiago to believe that it wasn't just time travel at work, that he was also being sent into slightly different alternative realities on adjacent timelines. But in the 1980s, while working under Project Pegasus, Andrew Basiago utilized the aforementioned jump room to teleport to the Red Planet, with the express mission of acting as an ambassador to the Martian civilization. His fellow travelers on this journey? William Stillings and President Barack Obama, among a number of others. During his escapades to the Red Planet, Basiago claims he encountered many extraordinary things, not the least of which were towering dinosaurs and what he described as humanoid scorpion men. In fact, according to Basiago, the roaming Martian dinosaurs were known to devour any humans who found themselves lost on the planet's surface. To hear Basiago tell it, Mars is an extraordinary and dangerous place. But Andrew Basiago has a website for his foundation that is interested in spreading the truth about Project Pegasus, and I encourage you to visit it. He goes into detail about his escapades in time and space travel, and you can find that at projectpegasus.net. But Andrew is just one of over 100 children experimented on during this project, and his story is extremely compelling. And it did make me want to look deeper for sure, but here's what we found out. Project Pegasus was real. It took place. Again, like MKUltra, they don't admit to any actual successes with it, but it did take place for decades and was even part of the larger and also declassified Project Stargate, which we need to get into in a future video that used even more of Tesla's research. But again, it draws similarities to MKUltra with Project Stargate connection, because Project Stargate had many offshoots, such as Gondola Wish, Grill Flame, Center Lane, Dragon Absorb, and Sunstreak. And they were experimenting with all kinds of things, not just with bending time and space, but also the human mind, studying and experimenting with psychokinesis, ESP, telepathy, remote viewing, psychoenergetics, and many, many more. Too many, really. This rabbit hole turned out to be a deep one, y'all, and we're going to have to revisit this. But the main takeaway for me is Project Pegasus took place. They invested heavily in this research of Nikola Tesla's, and there is no reason to believe that research would have gone on for decades into this without any successes. You know, they hide the capabilities of the human mind from the average person. They don't ever want us to realize our true potential. And what is our true potential? What truly exists technology-wise? What did they learn from Nikola Tesla? Will we ever know completely all of the answers? I think the answer for that is no. But is there a possibility that time travel is real? It looks like there is. But thanks for watching Conspiracy Theories and Chill. This has been a little look at Project Pegasus. Thanks for watching this video. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys right here next time from me on Things and Stuff.